The shuttle landed with a soft bump. 23 students pressed their faces against the windows like children seeing snow for the first time. Outside, the Galactic Cultural Exchange Station floated against the red curve of Mars. It was the most beautiful thing any of them had ever seen. Professor Park Deho stood at the front of the shuttle. He was a small man with gray hair and thick glasses. He had been teaching xenanthropology for 30 years. This was his last field trip before retirement. "Everyone stay together," he said. "This station has representatives from 12 different alien species. Please be respectful. Remember, we are guests here." The students filed off the shuttle in a messy line. Most of them were talking excitedly. Some were taking pictures. A few were trying to look cool and unimpressed, but their wide eyes gave them away. Yoon Jisoo was the last one off the shuttle. She was 22 years old. She had long black hair that she kept tied back. She wore simple clothes, nothing special. If you looked at the class photo later, your eyes would slide right past her. She was that kind of person. The kind that nobody really noticed. Jisoo did not take pictures. She did not talk excitedly. She just looked around quietly, taking everything in. She noticed the way the station guards carried their weapons. She noticed where the emergency exits were. She noticed which corridors looked busy and which ones looked empty. These were habits her grandfather had taught her. He had been a soldier in the war, back when Korea was still divided. He never talked about what he did during those years. But he taught Jisoo things. How to watch. How to wait. How to survive. Jisoo had never needed those lessons. She hoped she never would. The tour began in the main exhibition hall. Their alien guide was a Mirathi, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms. It spoke through a translator device that made its voice sound flat and mechanical. "Welcome to the Cultural Exchange Station," it said. "Here you will learn about the many species of the galactic community." The students followed the guide through exhibit after exhibit. They saw the Valkyrie first. These were warrior aliens, 8 feet tall with green scales and powerful muscles. The exhibit showed their weapons and armor. A live Valkyrie demonstrated combat techniques, moving with speed that seemed impossible for something so large. "The Valkyrie are considered the greatest warriors in known space," the guide explained. "No species has ever defeated them in direct combat." Kang Junho, the class president, raised his hand. He was tall and handsome, with the confident voice of someone used to being in charge. "What about humans?" he asked. "Where do we rank?" The guide paused. "Humans are new to the galactic community. You have not yet been classified." Some students laughed nervously. Others looked offended. Jisoo just kept watching. Next came the Marathi exhibit, showing their incredible technology. Then the Oruan, a species of psychics who could read minds. Each exhibit made humanity seem smaller and less impressive by comparison. It was in the Valkyrie combat hall that everything changed. The explosion came without warning. One moment, Jisoo was watching a Valkyrie warrior spin a blade through the air. The next moment, she was on the floor, ears ringing, surrounded by smoke and screaming. She got up immediately. This was another thing her grandfather had taught her. When something bad happens, do not freeze. Move. The combat hall was in chaos. Display cases had shattered. Parts of the ceiling had fallen. Students were crying and calling for help. Through the smoke, Jisoo could see Professor Park lying on the ground. He was not moving. Alarms began to wail. The lights switched from white to emergency red. A mechanical voice spoke in a language Jisoo did not understand, then repeated in Korean. "Warning. Station breach. All civilians proceed to emergency shelters. Warning. Station breach." But the doors were sealed. They had locked automatically when the explosion happened. Jisoo moved through the chaos toward a window. She wiped away the dust and looked outside into the station corridor. What she saw made her blood go cold. Soldiers were marching through the station. But they were not station guards. They were something else entirely. They were huge, easily 8 feet tall, with bodies like insects. Hard shells covered their skin. Their heads had clusters of eyes that glowed red in the emergency lighting. They carried weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. Jisoo had read about these creatures in her studies. They were called Goraks. They were slavers, raiders. They attacked stations and colonies, took everyone alive, and sold them on the black market. They were banned from civilized space, but that did not stop them. She watched as a group of station workers tried to run. The Goraks did not kill them. They shot them with something that made them fall down, paralyzed but still awake. Then they dragged them away. Jisoo stepped back from the window. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. Another lesson from her grandfather. Fear is natural. Panic is a choice. She looked around the room. 22 of her classmates were trapped here with her. Some were hurt. All of them were scared. Professor Park was unconscious. The alien guides had vanished, probably escaping through passages the humans did not know about. Nobody was coming to save them. Jisoo understood this with perfect clarity. The station was under attack. Security would be fighting for their lives. Even if help came, it would not come fast enough. She looked at her classmates. She looked at the sealed doors. She looked at the Gorak soldiers outside, moving closer, checking every room, and she began to think. The screaming lasted for 3 minutes. Then it faded into something worse. Silence. The kind of silence that comes when people are too scared to make any sound at all. Kang Junho was the first to speak. He stood up slowly, brushing dust from his expensive jacket. His hands were shaking, but he tried to hide it. "Everyone stay calm," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Stay calm. I am sure help is coming." "Help from where?" Lee Minji pushed through the crowd. She was Junho's girlfriend, a sharp-tongued girl who always said exactly what she was thinking. Right now, she was thinking that they were all going to die. "Did you see those things outside? They are everywhere." "The station has security," Junho said. "They will handle this. The station security is probably dead." This started a new wave of panic. Students began talking over each other. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to try breaking down the doors. Some just sat on the floor and cried. Choi Hyunwoo, the biggest student in the class, walked to the emergency exit. He was a large young man, built like a boxer. He began hitting the door with his fists. The metal did not move. He kept hitting anyway, over and over, until his knuckles split open and blood ran down his fingers. "It is no use," someone said. "Stop it. You are just hurting yourself." Hyunwoo did not stop. He could not stop. If he stopped, he would have to think about what was happening. So he kept hitting the door until 2 other students pulled him away. Jisoo watched all of this from her corner of the room. She had not spoken since the explosion. Nobody had asked her opinion. Nobody ever did. She moved quietly to the window again. The Gorak soldiers were still outside, but now she watched them more carefully. She counted their numbers. She studied how they moved. She noticed things. They were confident. Too confident. They walked slowly, checking rooms one by one, never rushing. They laughed with each other, making clicking sounds with their mandibles. They were not worried at all. Why would they be? Jisoo thought. They had done this many times before. They attacked. People screamed. People ran. People surrendered. It was always the same. The Goraks had never fought humans before. Humans were new to space. Weak, soft, not worth worrying about. Jisoo filed this information away in her mind. Behind her, Junho was trying to organize people. "We should barricade the doors," he said. "Push the heavy displays against them. That will slow them down." "Slow them down until what?" Minji demanded. "Until they cut through anyway? Do you have a better idea?" "Maybe we should surrender," said a small voice. Everyone turned. It was Baek Soin, a quiet girl who usually sat near Jisoo in lectures. Her face was pale with fear. "They're slavers, right? That means they want us alive. If we surrender, they will not kill us. They will sell us," Minji said. "Do you want to be a slave?" "I want to not be dead." More arguing. More shouting. Nobody could agree on anything. Jisoo stopped listening. She had noticed something else. One of the side doors was starting to glow. Not red like the emergency lights. Orange. Hot dawn they were cutting through. She moved away from the window and walked toward the ruined Valkyrie combat exhibit. The explosion had destroyed most of it. Display cases were broken. Weapons had fallen and scattered across the floor. But these were museum pieces, ceremonial items. Too heavy, too awkward, designed to look impressive rather than to be used. Jisoo kept looking. Her grandfather had taught her that anything could be a weapon, if you knew how to use it. She found it near the back of the exhibit. A chair had been knocked over by the blast. One of its metal legs had broken off. It was about 2 feet long, made of solid steel. One end was jagged where it had snapped. Jisoo picked it up. She tested its weight, swinging it slowly through the air. It was good. Better than good. It was perfect. "What are you doing?" She turned. Soyeon was staring at her with wide eyes. "You should hide," Soyeon whispered. "They are almost through the door." "I know." "Then why are you just standing there? Why are you holding that thing?" Jisoo looked at the chair leg in her hand. Then she looked at Soyeon. The girl was trembling so hard that Jisoo could hear her teeth chattering. "Go hide with the others," Jisoo said. Her voice was calm, steady, like they were discussing homework instead of survival. "Stay behind the big display cases. Do not make any sound. What about you?" Jisoo did not answer. She walked toward the side door. The orange glow was brighter now. She could hear the hiss of the cutting tool on the other side. The Gorax would be through in less than a minute. She positioned herself beside the door, pressing her back against the wall. From this angle, she would be hidden when the door fell. The soldiers would walk in, looking forward, expecting to see scared students hiding in corners. They would not see her. Not until it was too late. Behind her, she heard her classmates scrambling to hide. Some were crying quietly. Some were praying. Junho was still trying to give orders that nobody followed. Jisoo closed her eyes and breathed slowly. In and out. In and out. Her grandfather's voice spoke in her memory. "Fear makes you fast. Anger makes you strong. But calmness makes you deadly. Never fight angry. Never fight scared. Fight cold. Fight empty. Fight like you have already accepted death, and death will not take you." She had never understood those words before. Now, standing in the red light with alien monsters on the other side of the door, she understood perfectly. The cutting stopped. The door began to fall. Jisoo opened her eyes, raised her weapon, and waited. The door fell inward with a heavy crash. Smoke poured into the room. Through the smoke came the Gorax. The first soldier stepped through the doorway. It was massive, nearly 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in hard black shell, like a beetle made of nightmares. Its head had 6 red eyes that moved independently, scanning the room. Its mandibles clicked together in what might have been excitement or hunger. Behind it came a second soldier. They moved casually, weapons lowered. They had done this 1,000 times. They expected crying. They expected begging. They expected easy prey. They did not expect Jisoo. She moved before her mind could tell her to be afraid. One moment she was pressed against the wall. The next moment she was in motion, the chair leg swinging upward in a brutal arc. Her grandfather had taught her where to strike. Every creature had weak points, joints, gaps in armor, soft tissue. The Gorax wore helmets, but there was a gap where the helmet met the neck. The shell was thinner there. The chair leg found that gap with perfect accuracy. The first soldier made a wet choking sound. Green blood sprayed across the wall. Its legs folded and it collapsed, twitching, dying before it understood what had happened. The second soldier turned. Its 6 eyes went wide with something that might have been shock. It tried to raise its weapon. Too slow. Far too slow. Jisoo was already inside its guard. She drove the jagged end of the chair leg into its eye cluster. She felt the resistance, then the sudden give as the metal punched through into the soft brain beneath. The soldier dropped. It was dead before it hit the floor. Jisoo stood in the doorway, breathing hard. Green blood dripped from her weapon, from her hands, from her face. Her simple clothes were ruined. She did not care. Behind her, the room was absolutely silent. She turned around. 22 faces stared at her. Some from behind displays. Some from under tables. All with the same expression. They looked at her like she had grown wings, or burst into flames, or done something equally impossible. Junho's mouth was hanging open. Minji had stopped talking for what might have been the first time in her life. Hyunwoo, with his bloody hands, just stared. Soin was the first to speak. Her voice came out as a whisper. Jisoo? How did you? What did you? Jisoo did not answer immediately. She bent down and picked up the weapon the first soldier had dropped. It was heavy, designed for hands much larger than hers. But it would work. My grandfather was a soldier, she said. She checked the weapon, found what looked like a trigger, and pointed it at the wall to test. A beam of blue light shot out and burned a hole through the metal. Good. He taught me things. Things? Junho finally found his voice. It was higher than normal. What kind of things? We were in the same class for 4 years. I never saw you. You never asked. She picked up the second weapon and walked toward Hyunwoo. The big student flinched back, and she saw fear in his eyes. Fear of her. This small girl who had just killed 2 aliens in 3 seconds. Take this, she said, holding out the weapon. You are the strongest here. You should be armed. He took it with trembling hands. I do not know how to use it. Point it at the enemy. Press the trigger. Do not point it at your friends. He swallowed. I cannot do what you just did. I hit that door for 5 minutes and did nothing. You killed them in 5 seconds. You were trying to break through metal with your fists. That was never going to work. Jisoo's voice was patient, like she was explaining something to a child. Fighting is not about strength. It is about knowing where to strike. She moved back to the window. More Gorax soldiers were in the corridor now. They had heard the commotion. They were coming to investigate. We do not have much time, she said. More will come soon. When they find their friends dead, they will stop being careful. What do we do? Minji asked. Her sharp voice had gone soft with shock. Jisoo looked at her classmates. 22 people. Most of them had never been in a fight. Most of them had never even seen violence except in movies. They were students, scholars, the furthest thing from warriors, but they were also human. I watched them through the window, Jisoo said. The Gorax. They move in patterns. They check rooms one by one, always left to right. They never look behind them. They think they are the hunters. They think we are just prey. Aren't we? Someone asked. No. Jisu's voice was cold and certain. "We are human. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They hunted animals 10 times their size with sticks and stones. They did not survive because they were the strongest or the fastest. They survived because they refused to give up." She pointed at the dead Gorak soldiers. "These things have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. They expect us to cry and hide and surrender. They are wrong." She looked around the room. Some of her classmates still looked scared. Some looked doubtful. But a few looked different. A spark in their eyes. Something waking up. "I cannot save everyone by myself," Jisu said. "I will need help. Anyone who wants to fight, come with me. Anyone who cannot fight, stay here with Professor Park. Keep him safe. Keep the door blocked." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Hyunwoo stepped forward. His hands were still shaking, but his jaw was set. "I will come," he said. "Just tell me what to do." Soyeon stepped forward next. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "I am coming too." Then Han Yujin, a thin student who spent most of his time playing video games. "I know the station layout," he said. "I memorized it from the map. I can guide us. 4 people. Against an army." It was not enough. But it was a start. Jisu nodded. "Then let us go hunting." The corridors of the station were painted red by emergency lights. Smoke drifted through the air like ghosts. Somewhere far away, alarms still wailed. Jisu led her small group through the darkness. She moved differently now. Not like a student, like something else entirely. Each step was silent. Each movement was controlled. Hyunwoo tried to copy her and failed, his large body too clumsy for stealth. "Left here," Yujin whispered. He had the station map memorized perfectly. All those years of playing video games had given him an almost supernatural sense of direction. "There is a maintenance tunnel ahead. We can use it to get behind the main corridor." They entered the tunnel. It was narrow and dark, designed for repair robots rather than people. They had to crawl on their hands and knees. Soyeon scraped her palm on something sharp and bit her lip to keep from crying out. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they emerged into a storage room. Jisoo held up her hand. Everyone froze. Voices, clicking sounds. Gorak soldiers, just on the other side of the wall. Jisoo pressed her ear against the metal. She could not understand the words, but she could hear the tone. Confusion, concern. They had found their dead comrades in the exhibit hall. They knew something was wrong. Good. She gestured for everyone to wait, then moved silently to the door. It was slightly open. Through the gap, she could see 3 Gorak soldiers standing in the corridor. They were looking at a communication device, talking rapidly in their clicking language. 3 soldiers. She had 1 weapon. The odds were bad, but Jisoo had learned something from watching them. The Goraks relied on their superior size and strength. They fought face to face, overwhelming their enemies with power. They did not understand tricks. They did not understand traps. She looked around the storage room. Cleaning supplies, tools, containers of various chemicals. Her eyes settled on a tank of compressed gas used for the station's fire suppression system. An idea formed in her mind. 5 minutes later, everything was ready. Jisoo stepped out of the storage room. She stood in the middle of the corridor, weapon raised, facing the 3 Gorak soldiers. They turned. 6 eyes, 12 eyes, 18 eyes, all focusing on her at once. For a moment, they just stared. A small human female, alone, covered in the blood of their comrades. It did not make sense. It did not fit any pattern they knew. Then they raised their weapons. Jisoo fired once, not at the soldiers, but at the compressed gas tank she had placed in the corridor behind them. The tank exploded with a thunderous roar. Fire and force knocked the soldiers off their feet. Before they could recover, Hyunwoo charged out of hiding from the left. Soyeon came from the right. Even Yujin, trembling with fear, attacked from behind. It was messy. It was brutal. It was not the clean, efficient fighting of trained soldiers. But it worked. In less than 30 seconds, 3 more Goraks lay dead on the floor. Hyunwoo was breathing hard, his eyes wide. "I killed one," he said, his voice strange. "I actually killed one. Do not think about it now," Jisoo said. "Think about it later, when we are safe. Now we need to move." They moved. Through corridors and tunnels, around patrols and checkpoints, they moved. And everywhere they went, they left dead Goraks behind them. Jisoo learned the station like she had lived there her whole life. She found where the environmental controls were and vented atmosphere in a section where 6 soldiers had gathered. She activated fire suppression in another area, blinding the Goraks with foam meant to smother chemical fires. She created noise and distraction in one place while attacking in another. The Goraks' commander grew increasingly frantic. His soldiers were disappearing, not dying in battle, just vanishing. One moment they would check in normally. The next moment, silence. By the time anyone reached their position, they found only corpses. "What is doing this?" The commander demanded over the communication system. "What are we fighting?" Nobody could answer. In a secure room near the reactor core, a group of Valkyrie warriors had barricaded themselves. The greatest warriors in known space had been caught off guard by the attack. Now they waited, wounded and furious, for a chance to strike back. They heard sounds outside their door. Weapons fire, screaming, the clicking death rattles of Gorak's soldiers. The sound stopped. Something knocked on the door. "Hello?" A voice said. A human voice. A female voice. "We have cleared the corridor. You can come out now." The Valkyrie leader opened the door. He was massive, even for his species, with scales the color of old bronze and scars covering half his face. He had fought in 100 battles. He had killed enemies beyond counting. He looked at Jisoo, this small creature, barely reaching his chest, covered in blood and burns, holding a Gorak's weapon that was almost too big for her hands. Behind her stood 3 other humans, all young, all scared, but all still standing. "You did this?" the Valkyrie asked. "You killed them?" "We killed some. There are more. We could use help." The Valkyrie studied her. In his culture, size determined status. Strength determined worth. By those measures, this human was nothing. Less than nothing. A prey animal that had somehow gotten lost. But his culture also respected results. And the results were lying dead in the corridor. "What are you called?" he asked. "Jisoo." "I am Krath. My warriors will fight with you." Jisoo the human. He made a gesture that she did not understand. Some kind of salute. "Show us what you need us to do." For the first time since the attack began, Jisoo allowed herself a small smile. With pleasure. The final battle was fought in the shuttle bay. The remaining Goraks had retreated there, trying to escape with whatever slaves they had already captured. 40 soldiers. 40 veterans of 100 raids. They formed defensive positions around their ships, weapons aimed at every entrance. They were ready for anything. Valkyrie warriors. Station security. Military reinforcements. They were not ready for what came. Jisoo had spent an hour studying the shuttle bay systems. She found the gravity controls. She found the atmospheric processors. She found the cargo loading mechanisms. She turned the entire bay into a trap. The attack began when the lights went out. The Goraks switched to thermal vision. They could see heat signatures clearly in the darkness. They watched the entrances, waiting for enemies to appear. But the enemies did not come through the entrances. Jisoo and her team came through the ventilation system. Krath and his Valkyrie came through the cargo tunnels. Station security, finally regrouped, came through the maintenance hatches. They came from everywhere at once, from directions the Gorax had not even known to watch. And in the darkness, with gravity fluctuating wildly and alarms screaming, the greatest warriors meant nothing. Training meant nothing. Size and strength meant nothing. There was only chaos, and in chaos, the most adaptable survived. Jisoo moved through the battle like water flowing through stones. She did not try to overpower her enemies. She redirected them, tripped them, made them shoot at each other. When a massive Gorax commander finally cornered her, she did not fight at all. She simply stepped aside as a loading crane swung through the space where she had been standing, crushing the commander against the wall. The battle lasted 12 minutes. It felt like 12 hours. When it was over, the lights came back on. The shuttle bay was a ruin. Bodies lay everywhere, most of them Gorax. The survivors stood in silence, too exhausted to speak. 17 Gorax soldiers were dead. 12 had been killed by humans. 8 of those 12 had been killed by one small woman who had never raised her voice. Once during the entire fight, the aftermath was strange and quiet. Medical teams arrived. The wounded were treated. The freed slaves were comforted. Reports were filed, interviews conducted, recordings analyzed. The galaxy wanted to understand what had happened on the cultural exchange station. Jisoo refused all interviews. She sat in a corner of the medical bay while doctors treated her minor injuries, saying nothing. When they asked her questions, she gave one-word answers. When they told her she was a hero, she just shrugged. Krath the Valkyrie came to see her before his people left the station. "I have fought for 200 years, he said. "I have never seen anything like you. I just did what was necessary. No, you did what was impossible." He studied her with his ancient eyes. "We Valkyrie pride ourselves on being the greatest warriors. But you are something different. You do not fight like us. You do not fight like anyone. Where did you learn this?" Jisoo thought about her grandfather. His quiet voice, his patient lessons, the way he had looked at her, not like a granddaughter, but like a soldier in training. "Someone taught me," she said. "A long time ago. They taught you well." Krath made the salute again, the gesture of respect. "If all humans are like you, the galaxy should be afraid." The shuttle ride back to Earth was quiet. Professor Park had recovered consciousness, though his leg was broken. He sat at the front, occasionally looking back at his students with an expression nobody could read. He had spent his career studying alien cultures, believing humans were newcomers with much to learn. Now he was not sure what to believe. Junho sat alone by a window. The confident class president had barely spoken since they left the station. He had spent 4 years being the leader. When leadership actually mattered, he had frozen. A quiet girl from the back row had saved everyone. While he hid behind a display case, he did not know how to process that. Eventually, he walked back to where Jisoo sat. She was looking out at the stars, her face calm and blank. "Can I sit?" he asked. She nodded. He sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I thought I knew who I was," Junho finally said. "I thought I was strong, important, the kind of person who would step up when things got bad." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I was wrong about everything." "You are still the class president," Jisoo said. "That does not mean anything. It means people trust you. It means you know how to organize and communicate and lead during normal times. That is valuable. But when it mattered, you were facing something nobody should ever have to face." "You froze," most people would freeze. Freezing does not make you weak. It makes you human. John-Ho looked at her. What makes you different? Why did you not freeze? Jisoo was quiet for a long time. My grandfather used to say that fear is like water. If you fight it, you drown. If you accept it, you float. I learned to float a long time ago. I do not understand. I know. She turned back to the window. Maybe that is okay. 3 months later, a report was filed with the Galactic Council. It was classified at the highest level, available only to species leaders and military commanders. The report contained detailed analysis of the Cultural Exchange Station incident, including video footage, survivor interviews, and tactical breakdowns. The conclusion was simple. Humans are not to be underestimated. Despite their short time in the galactic community, they possess qualities that cannot be measured by standard metrics. They adapt. They improvise. They refuse to accept defeat. And when cornered, the quietest among them may be the most dangerous of all. Recommend updated threat assessment for all species. Humanity is no longer to be considered a non-factor in galactic conflicts. On a distant Gorax colony world, a slave trader read the report with growing unease. He had lost half his best soldiers on that raid, half his reputation, all because of one species they had dismissed as harmless. He made a note in his records. A new entry on the list of species the Gorax would never target again. The entry read, humans do not engage. They do not surrender. They do not flee. They fight. And they win. Far away on Earth, Yoon-Jisoo returned to her normal life. She attended classes. She submitted assignments. She sat at the back of lecture halls, quiet and unremarkable, just like before. But sometimes, late at night, she would sit on her apartment balcony and look up at the stars. She would think about her grandfather, about his lessons, about the war he never talked about. She would think about the station and the blood, and the moment when she picked up a chair leg and decided to fight. She did not feel like a hero. She did not want fame or recognition. She just wanted to live quietly, to be normal, to fade into the background like she always had. But she knew, deep down, that normal was over. The universe had noticed humanity. And humanity, whether it was ready or not, would have to answer. When that day came, Jisoo would be ready. Just like her grandfather had taught her, the quiet ones always were.